Hello and welcome. My name is Alex. I'm with Lowden Architecture, and today we're going to be looking at the design of this residential shop. This is a large detached shop for a client here in Butte County, and the project is pretty simple as a whole. It's actually, the client asked for a 60 by 100 shop, so a pretty substantial size project. The trouble with a project of that scale, I mean, when you think about the size of a home, this is like, you know, 2 homes put together, and it's a large rural property, so we're not going to run into a lot of issues with setbacks and zoning restrictions. The trouble now is finding a way to create an aesthetically pleasing design that works with the property and correlates with the house, and doesn't still functions successfully for the client, while also breaking up the big planes. Because if we have simply like 100-foot plane that's going to be 2 stories tall, because they want to have a mezzanine on 1/3 of it, so we're going to have a mezzanine. All of this area here is going to be a loft area, and then all of this remaining space is going to be a large 2-story volume, and that's to be able to accommodate their really tall RV and boats and recreational vehicles and things of that nature that are going to be utilizing this large open space. And so in order to create a design that this accommodates their program and provides them with the space they need, we need to have like this large rectangular structure and a relatively simple structure, so that we're not blowing the budget as far as the structural design is concerned. But we want to find a way to break up this front plane of the building, because that's where you're going to be seeing the structure from the street. You're going to have access to the building from the street here, and we want to be able to create a design that looks nice while you're approaching the property as well. And so we have some sketch ideas, a really rough format at the moment of how that might be accomplished. Essentially what we're looking at is coming out, and if you've got this large front surface, they want to have a couple garage doors along the front, and so we thought that might be a good opportunity to create some depth in that front elevations, rather than having a large 2-story wall that just extends for 100 feet. We could break that up into these sections here, and essentially that would provide space for the garage doors to open in. And then if they've got their large RV structure, that could take up some space along the wall here, and they could pull in to the garage in a couple different locations for cars on this side, and then RV here. And then I think we're going to have a second garage door, so that if they need to access the back of the property or just loop around and not have to back the RV out onto the street, they could pull straight through this direction. And then we'll have the mezzanine on this side to be able to accommodate a gym upstairs. We'll probably have a spiral staircase accessed here, and that goes up to the mezzanine level. Some posts, and these are going to be like large timber posts to match the aesthetic that we have on the existing house as well. So we know how we're going to enter the building in vehicles and how we're going to store the vehicles here, but we also need to think about a project of this scale on a pedestrian level as well. And so what are the doors going to look like going into the building? And on a lot of large shops, you'll just have, we'll have a door that's punched into, a large 60-foot wall, and it just looks like it's, kind of tacked in there. And, you'll see a lot of metal shop buildings that will do this, and that's, very utilitarian, very practical and cost-effective in a lot of instances. But for this, we're trying to do something that's also going to be elevate the design a little bit, and allow it to coordinate with the design of the existing house as well. So the main access point for the shop on a pedestrian scale is going to be from the front as well. Essentially, there's going to be a path that leads around some landscaping that we have here, and is going to access the shop from the front along the street side. And on the house, we have a covered walkway that you'll see in elevation here. It's got this large truss, like a timber truss, and some posts that have some stone bases on them, and we want to replicate that design here to pull in that aesthetic, and so that will be a good access point. We'll add some depth, and that is going to mirror the design of the roof structure here. And so we've got this rhythm of 3 different elements that grow and scale as you move along the building. And there's going to be some space and some windows here that are going to provide an alternative rhythm and balance. So we're going to be balancing the size of this pop out here with a large garage door. We're going to balance the size and scale of that with the quantity of different openings and aesthetic features on this side. So that's one way that you can balance out a structure so that this side doesn't feel too heavy with how large it is. You can balance that with just the quantity of additional design components on this side. We still want an access point down here. So in order to do that, I think we'll probably explore punching in some walls rather than having the door on the exterior wall. We'll probably inset it, and that'll provide some shadow when looking at the building from this direction. And then we could also have some windows along this wall and alternate some window areas with some storage space, and we'll determine the exact rhythm and size of that once we get into a larger scale and work at this in the computer. But for now, it's important, I think, to note that we'll have some storage spaces, and then we'll have some of these little inset spaces as well, and alternate the two as we go along that elevation. And then over here, this is the back of the building, and so it's not as critical from an aesthetic standpoint, but we'll probably have some windows that align with the entry to the door, because this is a beautiful view this direction, and so we want to have some windows along this elevation as well so that we can enjoy that view while we're working in the shop. Albeit like working on cars, exercising in the gym, we'll definitely have a lot of windows in the exercise area upstairs. And I think they're going to have a pool table as well on the mezzanine level, and so that will have some windows to the rest of the property too. But for now, what I want to do is explore how we can create the elevation that goes along with this floor plan. And so in order to do that, we're going to flip this page over here. That has some stuff on it. So we're going to grab this paper here, get a little bit more trace. So we can start to overlay our pieces of trace in order to create the elevation for the building. And this is still really rough. This isn't, in the computer it's all at 16th inch scale, which is really small scale. We usually work at 1/8, but for a project this size, we're just trying to look at rough massing to begin with. And so you can tell I've already measured it. This is 100 feet, and so we just want to scale up to 20 feet. And so at 16th inch, we're looking at about that. And that'll give us a 9-foot plate height, 9-foot ceiling height below the mezzanine, and then also above the mezzanine, because I think we're going to be looking at about 20 inches of structure. And so if that is our plate line there, this is our mezzanine here. Just put it in really lightly so that we can reference where it's located. And we'll have a couple feet for overhangs. And now we're looking at how this elevation is going to get laid out. And so we can look at the size and scale of the space. We're drawing this line here, that's going to define this pop out in elevation. And then we can draw, this line here. That is also going to be full height because we want 16-foot garage doors. And then we'll have our posts here, and these are only going to be partial height because we don't want to have 20-foot posts out in front of the building. But they'll have some stone on them, and then we'll have the roof line that extends above like that. Put some depth on that. That's going to have timber truss above it, and a door beyond. And then here we'll have a roof line here, and a roof line here. And then the main ridge line is actually going to be a hip, and that's to help bring down the scale and the mass of this project. So when you're standing out here, say you've got a little figure here in your sight line, if you're looking at the building here, you can see the sky at a lower angle instead of if you were looking here. Say we got the ridge up here, then you'd have to look up at a steeper angle in order to see the sky, and the building would have a more prominent mass to it. And so in order to avoid that, we're going to create some hip roofs, and that's actually going to match the aesthetic of the existing house. And so that's part of the reason, is to try and coordinate the design with the existing house as well. That's going to extend about like that. And I think that we got the mezzanine on the wrong side of the shop. That's going to be on this side over here. And so then we've got, this is our roof area. And then we'll have our 14-foot garage door by 16 feet. And then this, they wanted the large garage door to be about as big as they possibly could. So I think we're going to shoot for about 30 feet there and still keep it at 16 feet, and that'll provide enough space for their large recreational vehicles, RV and things of that nature, to be able to enter the tall shop. Here we go, let's erase some of this because we're not going to need that. Beautiful, all right. A little more dimension here. And now we want to take this wood truss that we've got at the entrance, and we want to create a decorative version of that at the gable end. So we're going to continue that timber aesthetic throughout the front elevation. So now we've got these three various components, and you can start to see this rhythm in the structure as you get to see the various components. And we talked about having some windows over here. We want some windows for the mezzanine level. You can start to see how much space we have. We'll probably have a couple different sizes here, maybe some picture windows to create nice rhythm on the front. And then where the view is on the back side of the shop, we'll have some larger windows that open up to the foothills a lot more. And we'll probably have some tall windows as well. Let's be back against the wall. And we'll get the exact location of these when we look at it at a larger scale. And then we've also got different materials that we'll have for the front of the house and for the front of the shop. So the house has a combination of stone and fiber cement siding, and so we'll probably incorporate that here as well, probably keeping some stone on some of these pop-out structures, because it's nice to be able to have the stone be restricted to a specific spot so that it looks like this component of the building was built in stone. Even though it's going to be a veneer stone, it reads aesthetically a little bit more pleasing if it's contained to a specific component of the building rather than, say, running a wainscot along the entire length of the bottom of it. And then we'll have some vertical siding for the rest of this. And so again, this is all really rough. This is mostly to get a basic feel of the design before we launch into the computer and design it all to scale. It's still really important to be able to draw quickly in hand, to be able to think through different ideas and explore different options very quickly. When you start to think about how something's going to work and you're modeling it in the computer, it tends to take a while longer to determine whether the design that you're looking at is even going to function properly, because you're detailing every little thing right off the bat. add some shadows so that we can start to understand how the depth is working along the length of this building. And there you have it. So our next step is we'll take this into the computer, we'll start to model it all. This is already drawn to scale, but when you start to detail things at a much more accurate level, you explore how it can be designed, and you start to look at all the specifics of where everything's located. We'll look at these windows in relation to the spiral staircase inside to make sure that those align. We'll see how far over we want to bring that mezzanine on the interior, and look at all the details there and make sure that everything functions appropriately and is designed to be enjoyable both from the inside and the outside. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as we walk through the different design process for the creation of this shop, we're going to be exploring more renderings and more ways that we can optimize the look and appearance of this project and make sure that it is something that the client is very happy with and can show off to their friends for many, many years to come. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.